Met this DM 5. Man, I forgot to do the intro. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever and whenever you are. I am Rune from Rune'sGuild, and this is another episode of RPG Horror Stories. Today we have two videos, because I thought this one was kind of interesting to read, and then I had another one ready. So, up first we have a story about a DM that blows a 5-year friendship to get some titty pics. And I know that sounds funny, but I haven't read it, so I'm assuming it's probably a bit more cringe than funny. But cringe can be funny, I suppose. And then after that, we have one about a PC that gets bullied and disliked, and the OP is disliked by the DM, I guess. Again, didn't read either of these ahead of time, so not sure what they have, anything crazy. There'll be an extra warning in a little bit. So before we get into even longer of an introduction, let's go ahead and roll some posts. Met this DM around 5 years ago. We became fast friends and had a lot of the same interests. Had some fun times. I also met most of my current D&D party through his games, so something good came out of it, at least. Anyway, Peters had a crush on me and asked me out. I said nah and moved on. A couple years later, he asked me for nudes. I say nah and we move on again with me telling him it's fine that he asked. See me, fool. He was very clearly into me, so obviously that other players in the games would make jokes about it. It was cringe, and I was very clear to him that I'd never reciprocated. Yet, he still persisted. Around this time, Peter started to get territorial. C was one of my close friends, and Peters would constantly condescend, argue with, and just generally be an asshole to him, to the point where C almost left the group because of it. Even if C was 100% right, Peters would go out of their way to prove C was wrong or pull the, well, I just don't see it that way bullshit. They argued about how elf trance worked for a week, and Peters was wrong, by the way. I talked to Peters about his shitty attitude a few times, but nothing ever changed. It got worse when I started DMing. Peters literally nuked an entire campaign because he didn't like how the rest of the party was playing. It's the bad cringe, or the funny cringe, I guess. He would, during break, take one of the players, C, into a private call and rage at how everyone else was playing. Campaign after that, I split the group to figure out who the problem was, and he forcefully ended the campaign early via throwing a portable hole into a bag of holding. I could have salvaged it, but by that point, I was obvious who the problem was, so I just ended it. I kicked him out of my next campaign and told him why. Now, for the fun part, I don't think it's going to be fun. I ended up talking to some of my other friends who were part of his games, all female presenting, keep in mind. And we all discovered that Peters asked all of us for titty pics. He would also call while drunk off his ass, something I managed to avoid by not accepting cold calls on Discord. He was also telling one of the other female players that there was nothing between him and I, while at the same time, he was still trying to get with me, saying shit like, I just want to wake up next to you. True player behavior. The group convo was the impetus for us all leaving the Discord at once. It was during the convo that provoked everyone to leave at once when the husband of one of our female players was contacted by Peters with some guilt-trippy bullshit about how us leaving seemed like a coordinated effort. Husband responded with a, maybe if you didn't ask all your female friends for tit pics, including my wife, they wouldn't have ghosted you. Funniest shit I've ever seen. The whole thing is just so weird to me. I'd never been in a situation before where someone was so blatantly an asshole and sexually explicit and weird, it really made you think, is this actually happening? Whenever he would do something, I think that's partially the reason we let it go on for so long without saying anything. That and not wanting to rock the boat. He was the DM after all. If we pissed him off, we'd probably get kicked and not get to hang out with our other friends. Example, constant CSA jokes about him and his dad, none of which, by his own admission, were true. How was that funny? And literally baby talking me if I had a headache. Okay, I changed my mind. It's the bad cringe. It's not even funny anymore. It's just cringe. Okay, that's really all there needs to be on this story. The rest of this is kind of just explanations of what some of the terms they used were. So, about that one, I mean, I get it's you know, I don't get it. No, I don't have anything I can say to salvage him. Everybody, there is nothing I have to say about this. Peters is an asshole, and that is about all it is. That's all you need to know. That's exactly how it is. We don't like Peters. We don't like him at all. And for that, I'm going to say next post. This is a throwaway account because I don't know if these people are on Reddit. Too long, didn't read at the end. Found a homebrew D&D 5e game 6 months ago and only recently left about 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to vent. I created a divine soul sorcerer that was raised in a cult to a god and was supposed to become a vessel for said god. Something went wrong and they only got a little bit of a connection, thus divine soul sorcerer powers. Needless to say, this connection to their god was important to them, but not as prevalent as a warlock or cleric. Get into the game and there's a few other semi-charismatic characters which I vibe with. My character is a bit on the chaotic side, but doesn't seem to immediately cause tension until we're doing an investigation into some missing paperwork. Session 2 or 3, we're looking into the disappearance and my character finds some weird cult stuff. Shifter immediately becomes afraid of my character and irrationally hates them, finds ways to hate them, everything my character does, and tries to antagonize them for the rest of the party. For the next 6 sessions, they steal from my character, try to force my character to give up personal information via Zone of Truth, stalk my character, and generally belittle them. I brought this up to the DM a few times, explaining it was uncomfortable and excessive. The DM said they would talk to them about it if it continued, but they never did. Shifter left around session 9 or 10 for different reasons, having difficulty coming up with a backstory or scheduling. At this point, my character had missed out on opportunities to interact with other PCs and the world, and so I felt a bit stunted. I revisited my backstory to bring clarity to the character, and when I brought it to the DM, they shot down all of my ideas and told me to keep things vague because it didn't make sense. He didn't offer other suggestions or anything even when I asked. When another NPC seemed to notice my character's connection to a cult, they became kind of odd. Apparently they had gone through something similar, parasitic god implant or something of the nature. What? And they showed my character some dream sequence which made my character drop to low hit points. The low HP dreams, sometimes even immediately dropping my character to 0 HP and giving them exhaustion, happened on multiple occasions to my character, but apparently never happened to anyone else's character. This only happened when my character looked further into certain plot points or tried to look into their god. I tried to explain to the DM that this was very harsh, especially since we were only level 4, and it discouraged me from wanting to look into the plot and rendered my character practically useless. The DM stated they didn't see the lack of HP or having exhaustion as an issue, and didn't want to discourage me, but it was a consequence of my character's actions? Oh yeah, my character that exists, it's the actions. How dare I exist? I asked him to explain what actions my character was taking that were wrong, and they didn't give me an answer because there isn't one. I realized I wasn't having fun with this character anymore since curiosity and mild chaos was punished so severely, and basically stated I wanted to make a new character. I was having issues placing them in the party and the world, and I wasn't having fun. The DM said this would be difficult and discouraged this, but ultimately let me. I created an elf druid, but only played them for 1 session. I was trying to have my character keep an eye on a local noble's house that the group had mentioned as being shady for odd reasons, because my character was interested in secrets and wanted to see if shady individuals came. I stated that right after the other PCs said they were headed to bed, I'd spend a few hours just keeping an eye on the place since elves only needed 4 hours for a long rest. DM told me that elves need the same amount of time as everyone else. They argued that trance was 4 hours rest and 4 hours light activity for an elf. But what I wanted to do wasn't light activity, and elves only got the benefits of a long rest after 8 hours. I had never seen it ruled this way and was generally confused, and told the DM as much. He said I was wrong and was looking at the wrong traits or reading it wrong, and basically got a little confrontational in front of the whole group. Yeah, that seems right. As this was the end of the session, I just kind of dropped it after a few minutes and decided to head off. He messaged me after with a whole bunch of stuff about the rule and just told me to go along with the right way, my bad, with the right way to rule this since he saw the ability as overpowered. I didn't respond much, but ultimately just kind of gave up. We had a VC the next day where I talked to him about everything and how I felt he was overly confrontational about the rule in front of the whole party, and it was embarrassing to have that conversation in that manner in front of the rest of the group. He continued to say that it wasn't his intention, but he was still right and I should have just accepted it. At that point, I told him I was going to leave because I felt like I had a sour experience with everything and didn't feel like I was being treated well. TLDR, another PC bullies, robs, and stalks my character, and the DM never addressed this even though they said they would. Once the bully leaves, the DM uses dreams to debuff and injure my character, but never used that on others. I talked to the DM about my concerns and how these punishments are looking into my character's backstories. He said it wasn't that bad, and it wasn't his intention to discourage it, but never changed any of it. Decided to make a new character, and then it didn't work out. Blah blah blah. The rest of the TLDR, we already read that. Okay. How do I feel about this? Well, my humble guild members, I feel like this is all just a little silly. I mean, the DM is kind of a jerk, isn't he? As well as the other PC, the other person. I didn't really name anybody, so we're just gonna go with the other guy. Or girl, they, them, whatever. The other person was being kind of a dick, wasn't he? I didn't see the part about stalking. Maybe I just kind of skipped over that. Maybe my mind just didn't read it. But if that player was stalking the character, I saw the bullying and the robbing. That's something that just shouldn't slide. I mean, this was talked about beforehand, and everybody in the party is okay with it. But I get the feeling that a lot of times people need the DM to be that intermediate force where it's sort of just like, no, we're not stealing, we're not killing, we're not bullying, we're not doing that. And of course, like I said, if it's talked about beforehand, that's totally fine. But sometimes when PCs step out of line, blah blah blah. But I guess, maybe the DM said something out of character and or out of the game, and that's why they left. But I don't understand the debuffs. I don't know where that came from. It seemed like the DM was only intent on doing them after the other person left. So maybe the other person said they weren't going to play because of them, and the DM felt like, maybe if I do enough things to force out OP, then I'll get the other player back. I feel like that's maybe where it went. I'm not entirely sure. Now, of course, having those dreams and the debuffs occasionally aren't a bad thing. Like, I have a player who is playing a sort of a homebrewed, similar to this, a sort of a homebrewed sorcerer, cleric type of class. And sometimes I give them, dreams about their god, and it can give them exhaustion and can make them lose HP. But that's only occasionally, and typically the HP doesn't carry over. It's, like you have your temp HP for the dream sequence, and then, like, if you, die in the dream sequence, maybe you take some damage or you get exhaustion or something, but, like, every time having that damage actually carry over and having the exhaustion there just because you're having a busy dream, that's just kind of weird and not very fun or fair. I guess that's all I really have to say about that, though. So that'll do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, leave me a like, leave me a comment, leave me a subscription. If you didn't, well, I'm sorry. If you have your own horror stories, leave them in the comments below. If you don't, good job. And on top of that, I suppose if you can't think of a comment to add, go ahead and just leave me a comment asking for some titty pics. I'm not going to send any, but I think it's funny. Of course, it is a little bit cringe still, and I cringed a little bit thinking back on that story. So that's about all I have to say in this one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.